The music pulsed through the walls like a heartbeat she didn't want to remember. Nora's breath came fast, uneven, her hands trembling as she slipped into the coat closet, slamming the door softly behind her and pressing her back against it like she could shut the world out by sheer force of will. The perfume lingering on her skin wasn't hers. It was the scent of someone else. Someone she hadn't seen in over a year. Someone who just walked into the same party like it hadn't taken Nora months to rebuild herself after her. She hadn't meant to come. Camille had dragged her out of the apartment with that devil-may-care smile and, you need to live a little. And now her ex, Fiona, was out there, laughing, touching, dangerous in the way only beautiful liars could be. Nora's hands reached blindly in the dark for something to ground her. Her fingers brushed against something soft.
No, not something. Someone.
Are you planning to stay here all night? The voice was low, rich, slightly amused, like dark chocolate laced with fire. Nora froze. Shit, I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone was… Sure, the woman said, still calm, unbothered. There was movement, a shift in the air, and then the faint click of a lighter. A single flame burst to life, illuminating sharp cheekbones, full lips, eyes like storms in the dark. She lit a cigarette, inhaled slowly, and let the smoke curl between them like an invitation. Did she see you? What? Nora whispered, her heart pounding harder now for an entirely different reason. The ex, the woman clarified, her gaze focused entirely on Nora. The one you're hiding from. Nora swallowed. I don't think so. She walked in, and I just panicked. Good instinct, the woman murmured, tapping ash into an empty glass on the shelf behind her. She doesn't deserve to see you when you look this good. Nora blinked. Do I know you? A faint smile touched the woman's lips, dangerously close to smug.
No.
But I know you. What does that even mean? Nora asked, her voice rising slightly, nerves curling around every word. It means, the woman said slowly, stepping closer until Nora could smell the expensive cologne under the cigarette smoke. You have the look of someone who's spent a long time pretending she's fine. And you're not. Not even close. Nora laughed bitterly.
Wow. Closet therapy.
Do you offer business cards, or just unsolicited character analysis in dark spaces? The woman chuckled, and God, it did something to her. I don't usually share closets. Or parties. Or most things, really. Then why are you here? Nora challenged. The smile faded. For a moment, there was something unreadable in her expression. Then she said, because sometimes even billionaires get tired of pretending. Nora's stomach dropped. You're joking. Am I? Her eyes glinted in the flickering lighter flame before it went out, plunging them into darkness again. You're Vivian Black, she said simply. Nora's mind reeled. The name hit her like ice water. Vivian Black, CEO of Blackwell Corporation. The mysterious woman whose face never graced magazines, whose fortune was whispered about in elite circles, but who rarely appeared in public, let alone in a random party. In a closet. What are you doing here? Nora breathed. Same thing you are, Vivian said. Avoiding people who hurt me. Silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. You don't look like someone who gets hurt. And you don't look like someone who hides in closets, Vivian replied smoothly. Nora opened her mouth to argue, but stopped. Because in that moment she saw it. The flicker of something raw beneath Vivian's cool facade. And it mirrored her own. Maybe we're both pretending to be something we're not, Nora said quietly. Maybe, Vivian said. But you can stop pretending now. Nora should have opened the door. She should have left. She should have walked out into that party, found Camille, gone home, and pretended none of this ever happened. Instead, she stayed. In the dark. With a woman who saw her more clearly in 5 minutes than Fiona ever had in a year. So, Vivian said softly, what happens now? Nora didn't know. But she didn't want to leave the closet. Nora didn't remember breathing. Not really. The closet was still dark, still tight, the air warm and buzzing with electricity, but something had shifted. A tension had taken root. Not the kind that made her want to run, but the kind that made her want to stay perfectly still, like a match afraid of catching fire. Vivian Black was less than a breath away. Nora couldn't see her anymore, not clearly, but she could feel her. She was a presence, powerful and steady, coiled like someone used to controlling every room she entered. Except now she was here, sharing the smallest one Nora had ever been in, and for some reason, neither of them were moving. "You didn't answer my question," Vivian said, voice low, soft but certain. "What happens now?" Nora swallowed hard. Her back was still pressed to the door, hands clenched at her sides. She could feel the heat of Vivian's body close to hers, not touching, but close enough to make her ache with the awareness of it. "I don't know," Nora whispered. "I wasn't planning on this." No one ever does. There was the sound of fabric shifting, Vivian's coat, maybe, or the hem of her dress brushing against something as she moved. Nora heard the faintest clink of jewelry, a bracelet, perhaps, but still no footsteps. "Why are you really in here?" Vivian asked. "Not just the ex." "I told you." "No," Vivian interrupted gently. "You told me what happened. I'm asking why it affected you that way." Nora bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. She hadn't planned on opening up to anyone tonight, much less to a stranger with eyes like winter storms and a voice that made her want to confess every sin she ever committed just to hear what she'd say. "She made me feel small," Nora admitted finally. "Like I was always apologizing. For existing. For wanting more. For not being what she needed. And the worst part? I believed her." "People like that don't love," Vivian said, and there was something dark in the way she said it. Something old. "They consume." Nora turned slightly toward the sound of her voice. "You've been there?" Vivian didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was quieter than before. "Yes." Just that. One word. But it landed heavy. "And what did you do?" Nora asked.
A beat.
"Then, I built an empire." Nora exhaled a shaky laugh. "That's one way to cope." "It worked," Vivian said simply. "For a while." The silence returned, but it wasn't awkward. It was charged, like they were both standing on the edge of something neither one could name. "You don't talk like a CEO," Nora said suddenly, surprising herself. "And you don't hide like someone weak," Vivian replied. There was something in her voice again, not flirtation, not exactly, but something far more dangerous. Intimacy. "You should come out," Vivian said. "Of the closet, I mean." Nora rolled her eyes, but smiled. "Very original." "I try." "You go first," Nora challenged. "Only if you follow." Another beat. Nora reached behind her and slowly turned the knob. The hallway light cut across the shadows like a blade, momentarily blinding her. When her eyes adjusted, she saw Vivian for the first time in full.
Tall. Sleek.
Black suit tailored within an inch of its life. High cheekbones, dark eyes, hair like midnight waves tied back with effortless grace. And she was looking at Nora like she was the only person in the building. "Well?" Vivian asked. Nora stepped out, her legs slightly unsteady. Vivian followed, and for a moment they just stood there, facing each other in the quiet hallway while the noise of the party raged on beyond the corner. "You don't want to go back in there," Vivian said. "You don't even want to be here. I saw it on your face." "Then why are you still here?" Nora asked. "Because I don't want to go back in either," Vivian said. "And I think you'd rather be with someone who doesn't expect you to explain your pain." Nora's heart pounded. "I don't know you." "You could." "Why would I want to?" "Because," Vivian said, stepping closer, "I'm the only person tonight who didn't ask you to be anyone but exactly who you are." Nora stared at her, not sure if she was furious or flattered. Probably both. But there was no denying the weight of that truth. No denying the way Vivian's presence peeled away the noise in her head and left only the raw, terrifying silence of honesty. "You don't date," Nora said, more to herself than to Vivian. "That's what the tabloids say." "I don't, but you're standing here with me." Vivian's mouth curved, slow and subtle. "Maybe I don't like rules." Nora let the words hang there, tasting the heat behind them. Maybe I don't either, she murmured. Then come with me, Vivian said. I have a car downstairs. And if I say no? You won't, Vivian said. Not cocky, just certain. And that certainty, for some reason, didn't feel arrogant. It felt like something Nora could lean on. Like maybe, for the first time in a long time, someone saw the broken pieces inside her and didn't flinch. Nora turned back toward the living room. She could see Fiona now, across the crowd, laughing in that way that always made her feel like an outsider. The old ache twisted in her gut. But then she looked back at Vivian, still, silent, waiting. Okay, Nora said. Let's go. And just like that, she followed the stranger, who wasn't a stranger anymore. Not really. Not after that closet. The door of the black luxury car shut with a muted, expensive click. Nora exhaled slowly as the world outside became nothing more than a blur of color and glass, the chaotic hum of the party fading into silence as the vehicle pulled away. Beside her, Vivian was quiet. Not tense, not cold, just composed. Like a storm that had learned how to live inside a tailored suit. Nora glanced sideways at her, trying to piece it all together. Less than an hour ago, she was hiding in a closet. Now she was in the back seat of a car that probably cost more than her entire student loan debt, beside a woman who felt like both a question and an answer. This is surreal, Nora said, breaking the silence. Vivian turned her head slowly, one eyebrow raised. Would you rather go back? No, the word came out sharper than she intended, and she winced.
Sorry.
I really don't. Vivian smiled faintly. Good. The car slipped through the night like it belonged to it. The city outside gleamed through tinted windows, streetlights flickering past, neon signs bleeding color across Vivian's cheekbones. It should have felt overwhelming. Instead, it felt safe. Where are we going? Nora asked. Somewhere quiet. That's vague. So are you, Vivian said. Nora let out a breathy laugh. Is this your usual seduction technique? Saving emotionally unstable women from bad parties and whisking them away in dark cars. Vivian turned her body slightly, her knees brushing Nora's. I don't seduce people. No, Vivian said softly. I offer them truth. Most people don't know what to do with it. Nora's heart stuttered. And what if I'm one of them? You're not. The certainty in her voice was unnerving.
Steady.
Like she knew things about Nora that even Nora didn't. Why me? Nora asked. You could have anyone. But you noticed me. In a closet. Vivian didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was low. Because I saw something in you I recognize in myself. A kind of quiet fire. Most people put theirs out. You're still burning. You don't even know me, Nora whispered. Not yet. Nora turned her face away, looking out the window. The city was blurring faster now. Vivian leaned back, watching her in the dim light. Tell me something honest, she said suddenly. Nora hesitated.
About what?
Anything. Her throat tightened. I haven't kissed anyone since her. Vivian didn't respond with surprise or pity. Only silence. Then she said, Do you want to? Nora turned slowly.
What?
Do you want to kiss someone? Vivian's eyes were steady. Not demanding. Not persuasive. Just present. Nora's mouth was dry. I don't know. That's an honest answer. They didn't speak again for a while. The driver didn't interrupt. The music didn't exist. There was only the sound of breath and tires on pavement and the tension that swirled like fog between them. Finally, the car turned down a quiet street, then another, until it pulled up in front of a building that looked like it belonged on a magazine cover. Modern.
Cold.
Gorgeous. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. The kind of place that screamed money without having to try. This is your place? Nora asked. One of them, Vivian said. The door opened. A valet took the keys without a word. Vivian stepped out first, then offered her hand to Nora. She hesitated for only a second before taking it. Her palm was warm.
Steady.
Vivian didn't let go as they entered the private elevator. As the doors closed, sealing them into another small space together, the memory of the closet flickered through Nora's mind. But this was different. This was intentional. "You're awfully comfortable being alone with strangers," Nora said. "You're not a stranger," Vivian replied. "You just don't know that yet." The elevator dinged. The doors opened into a breathtaking penthouse, all glass and sharp lines and minimalist art. It was too clean, too perfect, like no one really lived there. "Do you actually sleep here?" Nora asked. "Sometimes." "Do you have anything personal?" "What does that mean?" "Like a framed photo, a plant, a coffee mug that says, 'World's okayest billionaire.'" Vivian's mouth curved. "No." Nora wandered to the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the glittering skyline. "This feels like a place someone would keep their life hidden." "Is that what you're looking for?" Vivian asked from behind her. "A place to hide?" Nora turned slowly.
No.
"I think I've done enough hiding for one night." They stood there, the distance between them charged, their reflections cast in glass behind the city lights. Vivian stepped forward. Just one step. Not enough to touch, but enough to close the air. "Then what are you looking for?" Nora's breath hitched. She didn't have an answer. Or maybe she had too many. She could still taste the ghost of Fiona's presence back at the party, still feel the ache of years trying to be enough for someone who never saw her. And now this impossible woman, offering something she didn't have a name for. "I don't want to be another one of your regrets," Nora whispered. Vivian stepped closer. "You're not a regret. You're a risk." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to make you feel real." Their eyes locked. Something pulsed between them, soft, then sharp. Vivian reached out. Not to kiss.
Not yet.
Just a hand, brushing against Nora's cheek. Nora didn't move away. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she let herself feel. Not for Fiona. Not for anyone else. Just for herself. And for the woman standing in front of her, who hadn't asked her to be anything more than exactly what she was. Nora wasn't sure how long they stood there. It could have been seconds.
Hours.
The silence had changed, no longer full of hesitation, but something else. Something slower, deeper. Vivian's fingertips still hovered near her cheek, but she hadn't moved further, and that restraint did something to Nora's chest. It burned. No one had ever held her like that, not physically, but emotionally. Present. Grounded. Alive and waiting instead of taking. "Why aren't you kissing me?" Nora asked, her voice barely audible. Vivian didn't look surprised by the question. She looked patient. "Because I want you to know you can walk away. That I won't take anything you're not ready to give." Nora blinked, thrown off. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever meant it. Fiona had kissed her when she cried, touched her when she was vulnerable, said it was love when it was hunger. Vivian stood still, powerful, dangerous. But she waited. For her. "What if I don't want to walk away?" Nora whispered. Vivian's lips curved. "Then don't." And then, finally, the space vanished. Vivian leaned in, slow like the moment had always been leading here, her hand slipping behind Nora's neck with the kind of control that made her knees soften. When their mouths met, it wasn't tentative. It was heat and stillness breaking all at once. Vivian kissed like she thought too much, like she hadn't let herself feel this in years, and now that she had permission, she didn't intend to waste a second. Nora melted into her, one hand clutching the lapel of that sharp, expensive suit, the other gripping her waist. Their bodies pressed flush, all that tension unraveling in the friction. The kiss deepened, slow, sensual, exploratory. Not rushed, not hungry, just full. Full of everything Nora thought she'd buried. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless. Vivian rested her forehead against Nora's, her hand still cradling her nape. "Was that too much?" she murmured. "No," Nora said. "Not enough." Vivian smiled again, this time softer, sadder. "I forget how it feels to want someone this way." What way? Nora asked. Like it could hurt if I do it wrong. Nora brushed her thumb along Vivian's collarbone. Then don't do it wrong. Vivian looked into her, and for a moment, Nora saw the woman no one else got to see. Not the CEO. Not the icon. Just the ache beneath all that armor. Would you like something to drink? She asked suddenly, stepping back, breaking the spell just enough to breathe. Sure, Nora said, still dazed. Vivian moved with elegant efficiency into the open-plan kitchen, her heels silent against the polished floor. She opened a bottle of something rich and dark, poured into 2 crystal glasses, and handed one to Nora. You live like a Bond villain, Nora muttered, eyeing the place. Vivian raised a brow. Is that a bad thing? I mean, it's a little intimidating. The penthouse, the tailored everything, the mystery vibe. Good, Vivian said simply. Nora took a sip. The wine was strong, smooth, expensive. So, what's your deal? She asked. Why were you even at that party? Vivian leaned against the counter, her glass untouched. A business partner's daughter. She begged. I lasted 23 minutes. You counted. I always count. Nora tilted her head. Control freak. Survivor, Vivian corrected. There's a difference. Touché. Vivian finally took a sip, her gaze never leaving Nora. And you? Why did you really come tonight? Nora hesitated. Camille, my best friend, thought I needed to get out. I guess she wasn't wrong. I just didn't expect to run into my ex, or a billionaire hiding in a closet. Life's full of surprises, Vivian murmured. You say that like someone who doesn't let life surprise her. I don't. Nora set the glass down. But you let me. Vivian's expression faltered, not with fear, but with something else. Recognition. As if Nora had hit a nerve she hadn't meant to expose. You're dangerous, Vivian said softly.
How?
You see things you're not supposed to. Nora stepped closer. Then stop looking at me like you want to be seen. The space between them disappeared again. But this time it wasn't a kiss. It was closeness. Intimacy. Nora pressed her hand gently to Vivian's chest, feeling the steady beat beneath her palm. You don't have to hide here either, she whispered. Vivian covered her hand with her own. I don't know how to be open. Then let me teach you. You don't even know me. But I see you, Nora said. And God, she meant it. Vivian's defenses cracked, just slightly, just enough. Come with me, she said. Nora followed her through a hallway that felt more like a gallery, minimalistic and expensive, yet strangely untouched. They entered a room far less curated than the rest. There were books stacked messily, a chair by the window, an unmade bed with dark sheets. This is where you live, Nora said. Not a question. Vivian nodded. This is where I sleep. Do you ever let anyone in here? No, why me? Vivian looked at her, unblinking. Because tonight I needed someone to see me. And you looked. Nora stepped forward. She reached out, touching the edge of Vivian's shirt, then lower. Not to provoke, but to feel. Vivian didn't stop her. Nora whispered. Are you sure? No, Vivian said. But stay anyway. And so Nora did. She stayed. Not because of the wine, or the view, or the perfect suit hanging on Vivian's body. But because when she looked at Vivian, really looked, she didn't see power or status or untouchable wealth. She saw loneliness, control, hunger, just like her own. 2 women, both broken in different ways, choosing just for tonight, not to run. They didn't fall into bed.
Not yet.
They fell into something more dangerous. Trust. Vivian didn't sleep that night. Not because she was restless, or haunted, or pacing through the polished silence of the penthouse like she used to after deals or decisions or darker things. No, this time the reason was warm and quiet and curled up beside her in the center of a bed she never shared. Nora had fallen asleep like a sigh, soft, cautious, hesitant to let go. But eventually she had. And now she breathed slowly, peacefully, wearing nothing but one of Vivian's white dress shirts, her legs tangled in the expensive sheets like she belonged there. Vivian had kept her distance. She'd touched her, yes. They'd held each other. They talked, whispered things in the dark that felt like confessions neither of them knew they were capable of. But they hadn't crossed the line. Not yet. Nora had fallen asleep with her head resting on Vivian's chest, and that should have felt terrifying. But it hadn't. It had felt right. That was the problem. Vivian stared at the ceiling, her hand still resting lightly on Nora's hip. She wasn't used to right. She wasn't used to soft. People in her world didn't offer warmth without a price. And she didn't allow anyone close enough to ask for one. Until now. She should have pulled back hours ago. Should have made a quiet excuse, escorted Nora home, offered a driver, and walked away untouched. But something about that damn closet, about the way Nora had looked at her, seen her, it had undone something. It had crawled under her skin like wildfire. Nora stirred slightly, her body adjusting against her. "You're not sleeping," she murmured, her voice rough with sleep. "No," Vivian whispered.
Sorry.
"Did I wake you?" Nora didn't answer. She simply lifted her head, meeting Vivian's gaze in the dim light. The windows cast faint blue glows across the sheets, and her eyes looked darker in the shadows, softer too. "You're thinking too loud," she said. Vivian smiled faintly. "Bad habit." "Tell me," Nora said. "What are you so afraid of?" "Who says I'm afraid?" "You don't blink when you lie," Nora said gently. "And right now, your eyes haven't moved in a minute." Vivian laughed under her breath.
Not bitter.
Not amused.
Just exposed.
"You're very observant. You're very guarded. And you're very dangerous," Vivian said, reaching out to push a strand of hair behind Nora's ear. "You make it too easy to want things I told myself I don't need." "Like what?" "Like peace. Like honesty. Like waking up beside someone who doesn't expect me to be anyone but me." Nora leaned in and kissed her, soft and slow, the kind of kiss that didn't need urgency to be powerful. It was a promise, not of forever, but of presence. Of being there. In that moment. For real. When they pulled apart, Nora whispered, "I don't want to break you." Vivian's hand found hers. "Maybe I need to be broken open." The hours that followed blurred. They didn't sleep much. They didn't talk much either. There was no sex, not yet, but there was closeness, vulnerability, bare skin, and tangled limbs. Morning came quietly, with pale light slipping across the floor. Nora sat up slowly, reaching for her jeans, and Vivian watched her with a pang she didn't want to examine. "I should go," Nora said, not quite looking at her. "You don't have to." "I know. But you want to." Nora hesitated. "I want to process. Last night was a lot." "Yes," Vivian agreed. Nora stood, buttoning her shirt, folding her arms against the sudden chill in the air.
"Thank you," she said.
"For not pushing. For letting me feel safe. That's the least I can do." "Not in my experience," Nora said softly. Vivian got out of bed and walked her to the door. They didn't kiss goodbye. It wasn't cold or distant. It was too much. Too real. Vivian watched her disappear into the elevator, and when the doors closed, she realized her chest ached in a way she hadn't expected. She didn't like it. Vivian didn't do ache. She did control. Strategy. She built empires from nothing.
She didn't miss.
She definitely didn't hope. That afternoon, she stared at her phone more times than she cared to admit. No texts. No calls. No Nora. That night, she didn't sleep. Again. Across the city, Nora walked home in the morning light with her jacket wrapped tight around her. She didn't go to Camille's. She didn't call anyone. She just walked, her mind spinning. Vivian had been gentle. She had been patient. Kind. But the problem was that kindness wasn't something Nora knew how to trust. Fiona had been kind, too, at first. Soft touches, warm hands, sweet words. All masks. All illusions. Vivian felt different. But feelings lied. Didn't they? That night, Nora stared at her phone. Her fingers hovered. But she didn't type. She didn't call. Instead, she made tea, wrapped herself in a blanket, and tried to pretend that nothing had changed. That she could go back to the version of herself that didn't ache when someone like Vivian looked away. 2 days passed. Then 3. On the 4th, Nora opened her front door and found an envelope slipped beneath it. No name, no return address, just her name written in clean, sharp handwriting. She opened it. Inside was a single note. You didn't walk away.
Neither did I.
Nora stared at it, her heart in her throat. And beneath the note, tucked into the envelope, was a black keycard with a silver embossed V. No instructions. No demands. Just the same question that had been hanging between them since the closet. What happens now? Nora stared at the keycard like it might vanish if she blinked. It lay on her kitchen counter, the silver V catching the light every time she moved, a quiet dare in the middle of her too-quiet apartment. She hadn't slept. Not really. Not since the night in Vivian's bed. Since the warmth of a body beside her made her realize just how cold her life had become. It had been 4 days. 4 long, slow, aching days of silence, pretending she didn't keep checking her phone. And then the envelope. The message. No explanation. No demand. Just a key and a choice. You didn't walk away. Neither did I. Nora hated how much that line haunted her. How true it felt. How much it saw through her. She hadn't walked away. Not really. She had gone home. Told herself it was space. Told herself she needed time. But the truth was uglier. She was scared. Because Vivian Black wasn't a fling. She wasn't a rebound. She wasn't someone you could forget. She was a mirror, and Nora wasn't sure she was ready to see what might reflect back. But the key was there, and the message was clear. Vivian had opened the door. Now it was on her. So go, Nora thought. Go, and see what happens. Hours passed. Her tea went cold.
She didn't change. She didn't plan.
She just grabbed the keycard in her coat and walked out like if she thought too hard about it. She'd turn back. The car ride was silent. Her heartbeat wasn't. When she reached the building, the valet recognized her. Of course he did, and let her in without a word. The elevator seemed to move slower than last time. Or maybe that was her own breath, thick and unsure. When the doors opened, she stepped into silence. The penthouse was the same. Cold. Beautiful.
Clean.
But it didn't feel empty. She saw her coat still folded over the arm of the chair where she'd left it. A glass half full beside the window. The room had waited. And then, you came. Vivian's voice. Quiet. Not surprised, not triumphant. Just relieved. Nora turned. Vivian stood near the window, barefoot, hair loose, wearing a black sweater and soft pants. Less armor. More skin. More real. Nora swallowed. I thought about not coming. I know. But I wanted to. Vivian stepped forward slowly. I was starting to wonder if I'd imagined it. The way you looked at me. You didn't. Vivian stopped just in front of her. Close enough to touch. I'm not good at this, she said softly. Whatever this is. I've spent a long time perfecting the art of being untouchable. And I'm the exception? You're the earthquake, Vivian said. I thought I was safe in the fortress I built. Then you walked in and reminded me that walls aren't the same as protection. Nora's throat tightened. You scare me, she whispered. Good. Vivian's mouth twitched. Because you scare me too. Their eyes locked. The air between them shifted again. No longer tension. Something heavier. Need. Vivian reached out and took Nora's hand. Slowly. As if asking. As if waiting. Nora didn't pull away. She stepped closer.
I don't know what I'm doing, she said.
Neither do I. I don't want this to be a mistake. Then don't let it be. The kiss came fast this time, no restraint, no waiting. It was all the silence of the last 4 days pouring out at once. Vivian kissed like she was starving, like she'd been holding her breath since the morning Nora left. Nora responded with equal urgency, her hands tangled in dark hair, her body pressed tight against firm curves. They moved together like they already knew the rhythm, a dance learned in the dark and remembered now in daylight. Vivian lifted her effortlessly, Nora's legs wrapping around her waist, and they didn't stop kissing as she carried her down the hall. The bedroom was warm this time. Lived in. Sheets messy.
Pillows dented.
Nora hit the mattress with a breathless laugh and pulled Vivian down on top of her. Clothes came off in pieces, Sweaters over heads, jeans tugged off hips, fingers stumbling with buttons between kisses. They paused only to breathe, to look, to memorize. Vivian's eyes were darker than Nora had ever seen them, not with lust alone, but something far more dangerous. Worship. Nora touched her face. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like I matter. You do. The first time was not soft. It was urgent. It was two people trying to prove something to themselves with every movement, that they were still alive, that they could still feel, that they weren't broken beyond repair. But after was different. After was silence, not awkward but sacred. After was tangled limbs and open mouths breathing the same air. After was Nora resting her head on Vivian's chest again and realizing, for the first time in months, she wasn't thinking about Fiona. At all. She whispered, "Tell me something true." Vivian's hand traced slow circles on her back. "I didn't think I deserved this." Nora looked up. "Do you though?" Vivian's eyes searched hers. "I want to." Nora leaned in and kissed her again, slow this time. Lingering. "Then start with that." They fell asleep wrapped in each other. And when Nora woke in the middle of the night to find herself still in Vivian's arms, still safe, still seen, she didn't run. She didn't hide. She stayed. Vivian woke first. It was still dark, hours before morning, but the city outside glowed in distant amber lines. She didn't move. Nora was asleep in her arms, soft and warm, her breathing steady against Vivian's chest. It should have been comforting. It was terrifying. This wasn't what she did. She didn't keep people overnight. She didn't wake up with someone in her bed. She didn't trace the curve of a woman's spine with her fingertips just to memorize the way she fit against her. But here they were. Still naked. Still tangled.
Still here.
Nora shifted slightly, murmuring something in her sleep, a name maybe, or a sound that caught in her throat, and Vivian froze, every muscle tightening. She held her breath. Waited. Nora didn't wake. But Vivian couldn't stop the question now lodged in her mind like a thorn. Was it her name you just said? Or someone else's? She hated the thought. Hated how small it made her feel. Vivian Black didn't do jealousy.
She didn't compete.
She didn't chase. But Nora wasn't someone she could control. She was real. Unpredictable. And that made her dangerous. Too dangerous, her mind warned. But her body, her heart, had already betrayed her. When morning came, it came gently. No alarms. No rush. Just slow light creeping in and the faint hum of the city waking below. Nora stirred again, this time stretching slightly, her arm brushing across Vivian's ribs. Then she blinked awake, her eyes landing on Vivian with a softness that unraveled her. "You didn't leave," Nora said quietly. "Neither did you," Vivian murmured. They stayed like that for a moment, breathing together, until Nora sat up, pulling the sheet around her body. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you always disappear for 4 days after sleeping with someone?" The words weren't angry, just cautious. But they cut deeper than Nora probably meant. Vivian sat up too, the sheet falling to her waist. "I don't usually sleep with anyone." "Right," Nora said, looking away. "Because you don't let anyone in." "Because I don't want to hurt anyone," Vivian said, and there was a sharp edge to her voice now, not defensive, exposed. "I'm not safe."
With this.
"I'm still figuring out how to let someone close without breaking them." Nora's shoulders tensed. "And I'm not someone you can try on and throw away if it gets too real." "I know that. Do you?" Nora turned back to her, eyes fierce now. "Because I've been here before. With someone who made me feel like I was the center of their world for one night, then disappeared the second I wasn't convenient." Vivian's jaw clenched. "I'm not Fiona." Nora flinched. "I never said you were. But you thought it." "I don't know what I thought." The silence between them this time wasn't charged. It was sharp. Heavy. "I don't know what this is," Nora said finally, her voice quiet. "But it's not casual. Not for me." "It's not casual for me either," Vivian said, standing and pulling on a robe. "That's the problem." Nora narrowed her eyes. "Why is that a problem?" "Because when something matters, it has power. And I've spent my life making sure no one has that over me. Nora stood too, the sheet still wrapped around her. So you want this, but you're afraid of wanting it too much? Yes. Then say that. Don't punish me for showing up. Vivian looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment the mask slipped, just enough to show the storm behind her calm. You terrify me, she whispered. You make me feel like everything I built could fall apart if I say the wrong thing. Nora's voice trembled. Then build something different. They stared at each other, breathless, neither willing to look away. Vivian stepped forward, reached out, brushed her fingers down Nora's bare arm. You're not a mistake, she said. But I might be. Nora's throat tightened. Then don't ruin it. Vivian's eyes burned. Stay. Are you asking me to stay because you want me here, or because you're afraid of being alone again? Vivian hesitated. Just long enough. That's what I thought, Nora whispered. She walked to the edge of the bed, found her clothes folded on a chair.
Dressed slowly.
Quietly. Her hands trembled, but she didn't let Vivian see. I'm not walking away, she said at the door. But I'm not chasing you either. Vivian didn't answer. She didn't stop her. She just stood there, robe clutched at her waist, silent and watching as Nora left. Again. But this time, something was different. This time it hurt. All day, Vivian couldn't focus. She ignored calls, canceled meetings, poured a drink she didn't finish. The penthouse felt bigger, colder, emptier. She went to the bedroom and found the impression still on the sheets where Nora had lain. She touched it, closed her eyes. Regret settled in her chest like smoke. Across the city, Nora sat in a cafe with Camille, trying to act normal, trying to pretend she wasn't unraveling. Camille watched her closely. So, she said, are you going to tell me why you've been walking around like you've just seen God and then got rejected by her? Nora stared into her coffee. I slept with someone. Okay.
And?
Nora exhaled. Complicated. What's her name? Vivian. Camille blinked. As in Vivian Black? Yes. Camille nearly dropped her fork. You slept with a billionaire? She's not. She's not the story.
I don't even care about that.
She's just her. And I can't stop thinking about her. But she pushes and pulls, and I don't know how much of myself I can give without breaking. Camille reached across the table, took her hand. You don't have to figure it all out at once. Just don't lie to yourself. If it hurts, say it. If it matters, fight for it. That night, Nora wrote a message. She stared at it for an hour, deleted it, wrote it again. I'm not walking away, but I won't stay unless you meet me halfway. She hovered, then hit send. Vivian read the message 3 times. Each word felt heavier than the last, not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't need to say. It didn't beg. It didn't threaten. It just held up a mirror and waited for her to stop lying to herself. I'm not walking away, but I won't stay unless you meet me halfway. She set the phone down like it might burn her. The room felt impossibly quiet, and for a moment she wished she could go back, not to the beginning of her story with Nora, but further. Back to before she learned that closeness meant danger. That love meant risk. That vulnerability could be used like a knife. Her father had taught her that. Indirectly, without even trying. Growing up, love had always come with conditions. Earned with perfection. With obedience. Praise was rare, warmth even rarer. She learned early on that silence was safer than softness. So she built her empire like she built herself. Flawless, impenetrable, cold when necessary. People respected her, feared her, but they never really knew her. That had always been the point. And then, Nora. Nora, with her mouth that said too much and her eyes that said even more. Nora, who kissed like she knew what it meant to be broken and didn't apologize for it. Nora, who didn't ask her to change, but dared her to feel. Vivian sat on the edge of the bed, the phone still within reach, but untouched now. She thought about calling. She thought about showing up. Instead, she stood and went to her office. Not the sleek, Marble and chrome penthouse office where she took calls and reviewed contracts. The other one. The locked room she never let anyone see. Behind the bookshelf in her study was a door no one else had ever opened. A biometric scan. A coded keypad. It clicked open with a soft hiss, and Vivian stepped inside. The room was small, quiet, windowless. A vault for things she didn't want to forget but couldn't live with in plain sight. Photos. Letters. A childhood music box. A tiny, faded scarf that had once belonged to someone who used to make her laugh before the world turned hard. At the center was a box. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. 2 girls, maybe 16. One of them, her, hair loose, eyes brighter, smiling at someone behind the camera. The other girl was shorter.
Kavya.
Her arm draped over Vivian's shoulders like it was the most natural thing in the world. Amelia. The first and last girl she ever loved. Before business. Before betrayal. Before the price of being vulnerable proved too high. Amelia had left without a word. Just vanished. One day she was the center of Vivian's world. The next gone. And Vivian learned her lesson. Nothing fragile survives. Until Nora walked into a closet and rewrote every rule. She stared at the photo for a long time. Then she did something she hadn't done in over a decade. She cried. Just a few silent tears. Not for Amelia. Not anymore. But for all the years she'd convinced herself she didn't need anyone. That survival was the same thing as living. She wiped her eyes and stood. Walked back into the main apartment. Picked up her phone.
Typed.
I want to meet you. No walls. Just me.
Tonight.
Please. Then she sent it. And waited. Across the city, Nora stared at her screen. Her heart slammed into her ribs. She hadn't expected a response, not really. She wanted one, sure, but she'd braced for silence. For the quiet rejection of nothing. But the words were there.
Honest. Bare.
No walls. Just me. She almost cried. Instead, she sent back. Tell me where. The address came immediately. But it wasn't the penthouse. It wasn't the tower of steel and glass. It was a small place. A tucked-away spot in an older neighborhood.
Quiet.
Not a single trace of business or branding. When Nora arrived, she didn't know what to expect. But she didn't expect this. A small brownstone. Ivy creeping up the sides. A red door. And when it opened, Vivian. In jeans. A soft gray t-shirt. Barefoot.
Hair down.
No jewelry. No sharp edges. Just her. Nora stood frozen. Hi, Vivian said softly. Hi, Nora echoed. Vivian stepped aside. Come in. The place was small, warm. Books on shelves. A plant that looked half alive. A blanket on the couch, clearly used. It felt lived in. This is yours, Nora asked. It's where I go when I don't want to be Vivian Black. Nora turned slowly, taking it all in. It's beautiful. Vivian watched her like she was scared to move too fast. Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking. Would you like something to drink? Only if you're drinking too. Vivian smiled, disappeared into the kitchen, returned with 2 glasses of wine. She handed one to Nora and kept one for herself. They sat on the couch inches apart, but it felt like more. I was scared, Vivian said, voice quiet. I've never let anyone get this close.
Not really.
I know, but I want to, with you. Nora swallowed. I don't want to be someone you open up to for one night and then shut out the next morning. You're not, Vivian said, and her voice broke a little. I was going to shut down. It's what I do. But I opened a door tonight I haven't looked at in years. And I realized I've spent so long protecting myself that I forgot what it felt like to live. Nora reached out, took her hand. Then let's live. Not perfectly. Just honestly. Vivian looked down at their hands. You matter to me. And you matter to me, Nora whispered. But if this is going to work, we have to promise not to run when it gets hard. I won't run, Vivian said. Not if you stay. Nora smiled. Then I'm staying. Vivian exhaled, a long, shaky breath like she'd been holding it for years. And when she leaned forward this time, when she kissed Nora, it wasn't hungry or desperate. It was peace. It was a beginning. It was real. It started small, quiet, gentle in a way that felt almost fragile. Vivian didn't ask Nora to move in. Nora didn't bring a suitcase. But a toothbrush appeared on the edge of Vivian's sink. A sweater found its way into her closet. A half-empty mug sat on her bedside table 2 mornings in a row, and neither of them commented on it. They didn't need to. Something unspoken had shifted between them, a rhythm, a comfort, a soft claim that didn't require explanation. And still, Nora woke each day unsure how long it would last. The intimacy in Vivian's quiet home, that safe, warm brownstone with its books and its still-growing ivy, felt like another world. A bubble. Untouchable. But the world outside hadn't changed. And neither had the things that lived inside both of them. Nora caught the first sign in Vivian's eyes the following week. A brief look. A flicker. They were at a small restaurant, tucked into a quiet booth. Vivian had reached across the table, her fingers brushing against Nora's wrist, and Nora had smiled. But something shifted in Vivian's face as a woman passed their table, tall, striking, familiar. Nora didn't recognize her, but Vivian did. Her hand tensed. Her jaw tightened. The warmth between them cooled instantly. "Who was that?" Nora asked gently. "No one," Vivian replied too fast. "Nora, let it go." But it sat in her chest like a stone. Later that night, Vivian was distant. Not cruel, not cold, just absent. Present in body, elsewhere in spirit. Nora didn't push. Not then. But by the 3rd time Vivian closed herself off without explanation, the air between them began to fill with shadows. "We said no walls," Nora reminded her one night, standing barefoot in the kitchen, holding a glass of water with both hands like it might keep her grounded. Vivian leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "It's not a wall. I'm just tired." "You're always tired when something's wrong." Vivian looked away. "Maybe some things are better left unsaid." "No," Nora said, firm now. "That's what people tell themselves when they're afraid the truth will cost them something. But I'm already here. I already care. You don't need to protect me from your ghosts." "They're not ghosts," Vivian whispered. "They're still breathing." That froze her. Nora's heart kicked against her ribs. "Then talk to me." "I don't know how." "Try." Vivian hesitated. Then finally, her name was Celeste. The name hung in the air like fog. Nora didn't breathe. "The woman at the restaurant?" Vivian nodded. "We were involved. Years ago. It ended badly. She wanted things I couldn't give." "Like what?"
Control.
"Appearances. She wanted the image of intimacy, not the reality. She liked being seen with me. But behind closed doors, it was all games. Manipulation. Power. So you ended it." "Eventually." Vivian's voice cracked. "But she tried to turn the story on me. Told people I destroyed her. That I used her. She was persuasive. She always was. And some of them believed it. I lost friends. Investors. I lost trust in people." Nora crossed the room and took Vivian's hand. "I'm not her." Vivian didn't pull away. "I know that. But sometimes when I look at you and I feel this need to let you all the way in, I remember what it cost me last time." Nora nodded. "I get it. I do. I have ghosts too. But they don't get to live here. Not with us." Vivian looked up. "You still want this?" "Yes," Nora said. "But not like this. I won't be a secret. I won't be the woman you hide because someone from your past still haunts you." Vivian didn't speak. Just up closer and pressed her forehead to Nora's. "You're not a secret," she whispered. "You're a story I'm still learning how to tell." The next day, they went out again, holding hands, in public. Nora felt Vivian's fingers twitch with hesitation more than once, but she didn't let go. Not once. That night, they danced in the kitchen. No music, no lights, just bare feet on tile, and 2 women who didn't know how to be whole but were learning how to be honest. And still, the cracks were there. Invisible but real. Vivian flinched whenever her phone buzzed. She kept her second phone, the work one, locked away in a drawer. She didn't talk about upcoming meetings or business trips or any part of her life that lived outside their private world. And Nora, despite her promises, felt it. The space between what Vivian said and what she didn't. Camille noticed too. "She loves you," she said over coffee one afternoon. "That's not the question." "Then what is?" Nora stirred her drink slowly. "The question is, will she still love me when the rest of her world finds out I exist?" "You think she's hiding you?" "I think she's afraid. And I think if that fear wins, we lose." That night, Nora asked a simple question. Just one. "Would you ever bring me to a company event?" Vivian froze, then looked away.
Why?
"Because I want to be part of your world. Not just this one. The real one. This is real. Not if I'm only allowed to exist behind closed doors." "I'm protecting you," Vivian said. "From the press. From speculation. From people like Celeste." "You're protecting yourself," Nora said, and her voice shook. "And if you can't be proud of what this is, if you can't let people know we're together, then maybe you're not ready to be." The silence that followed was the deepest they'd ever shared. Not angry, not cold, just empty. Vivian didn't reply. Nora turned, walked toward the bedroom, and closed the door softly behind her. And in the quiet that followed, Vivian stood alone. Again, wondering if loving someone was always going to mean learning how to lose them too. Nora didn't sleep that night. Not because of anything Vivian said, but because of what she didn't. The absence of a response echoed louder than any fight. She lay in the dark, alone in Vivian's bed, the same place where they had whispered promises, touched like the world outside didn't exist, built something fragile and tender with their bare hands. But now, that same bed felt foreign. Cold. The sheets were untouched on Vivian's side. Nora stared at the ceiling, wide-eyed, hollow, as the hours crawled past. At 3:12 a.m., she got up, dressed slowly, quietly, not to make a statement, not to punish, but because something inside her had finally tilted. She walked through the apartment with bare feet and a burning throat, the floor cold beneath her. When she reached the front door, she paused. One last glance. One last hope that maybe Vivian would stop her. Say something. Anything. But nothing came. She left. And Vivian didn't follow. The next day passed in a haze. Camille found her curled up on the couch, silent, staring at the television but not watching anything. "Did you leave her?" Camille asked gently. Nora didn't answer for a long time. Then finally, "I think she let me go." Vivian didn't reach out that day. Or the next. Nora checked her phone more times than she wanted to admit. Every buzz sent her stomach into freefall. Every silence chipped away at the part of her that still believed. At the office, Vivian was a machine. Meetings. Calls. Paperwork. Precision. She barely spoke unless it was strategic. No one noticed the crack in her voice when she said, "I'm fine." No one but Leona, her assistant of 7 years, who brought her tea instead of coffee, like she used to during the divorce hearings of a former business partner. A quiet gesture. A small acknowledgement of pain. Vivian barely touched it. At night, she returned to the brownstone. Alone. The sweater Nora had left hung over the back of a chair. Still there. Still soft. Still hers. Vivian picked it up once. Pressed it to her face. Put it back down. Didn't cry. Couldn't cry. Not again. She wanted to text. God. She ached too. But what could she say that wouldn't sound like an apology too late? Come back. "I'm sorry. I was afraid. I still am." But none of it felt like enough. Or maybe it felt like too much. Nora, meanwhile, was trying to rebuild. One morning, she started writing again, something she hadn't done in months. Not work. Not assignments. Just thoughts. Anger. Ache. The raw pieces of everything she hadn't said out loud. She filled pages in a spiral notebook with sentences she would never send. "I let you see me. And you blinked. I wanted to be loved, not tolerated. You made me feel like home until I remembered it wasn't mine. Camille read one of them by accident and didn't speak for a full minute.
You need to send this, she said.
Not as a message, as a truth. Nora shook her head. She knows. Maybe she does, Camille said. But maybe she needs to read it to feel it. That night, Nora copied just one sentence onto a new page, folded it, put it in an envelope. No name, just a silver V drawn on the back. She dropped it off at the brownstone herself, slipped it under the door, and walked away without knocking. Vivian found it when she came home from a meeting she couldn't even remember the details of. The envelope was small.
Neat.
She opened it carefully. The paper was thick. Nora's handwriting was sharp, deliberate. And the sentence was simple. I won't fight to be loved by someone hiding from themselves. Vivian sat down. Slowly. The words hit her harder than she expected. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. She had been the one afraid. She had been the one who built the world too tight for Nora to breathe in. She thought being careful would keep them safe. But all it did was push her further away. She picked up her phone.
Typed.
Deleted. Typed again. But this time, she didn't send a message. She made a plan. The next morning, Nora opened her door to a knock she didn't expect. Camille wasn't due. She hadn't ordered anything. And yet there stood Leona, Vivian's assistant, dressed sharply, holding an envelope. She asked me to deliver this. Leona said, no expression. Just warmth in her eyes. Personally. She handed the envelope to Nora. It was thick, heavy, her name written in Vivian's hand. Nora waited until the door was closed. She opened it. Inside was a letter.
And a key.
Nora, I should have said this days ago. Maybe weeks. Maybe the night we met. You were right. I was protecting myself. I've spent years doing it so well I forgot it was a choice. But I don't want protection anymore. I want you. You deserve more than my half versions. You deserve my presence, my voice, my name beside yours. I've invited my board to a gala next week. The press will be there. Donors. Every piece of the world I've kept you out of. I want you beside me. Not hidden. Not quiet. Not as a guest. As mine. I'm not afraid of being seen anymore. I'm just afraid it's too late. The key is to the brownstone. Not for tonight. For whenever, if ever, you want to come home. I'll wait. Nora reread the letter 3 times. Her fingers curled around the key. Her chest ached. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stood there, breathless. Because for the first time since all of it began, Vivian had chosen her. Nora stood in front of the mirror, holding the letter in one hand and the key in the other, her heart thudding like it didn't trust her to make the right decision. She'd read it 5 times, maybe 6, each word sinking deeper into the parts of her that had tried so hard not to hope. Vivian wanted her there. Not hidden. Not silenced. Not protected like a fragile secret. But seen. Nora didn't care about galas. She didn't care about billionaires or donors or press. What she cared about was the woman behind the walls, the one who had stood in that closet and told her the truth before either of them was ready to say it out loud. But now it was out. All of it. The fear. The risk. The raw, shaking vulnerability of choosing someone not because it's easy, but because it's worth it.
She didn't text.
She didn't warn. She just got dressed. The night of the gala was unseasonably warm, and the air carried a quiet pressure like something was about to shift. The venue was a converted opera house, all velvet and gold and chandeliers that sparkled like teeth. Photographers crowded the entrance, their flashes a rhythmic storm. Nora stayed in the back of the car, heart pounding, eyes scanning for a familiar shape, until she saw her.
Vivian.
In a black gown that fit like it had been made only for her hair swept up, a single silver line of jewelry at her throat. She stood tall, still, composed, but when she looked toward the car, her expression changed. Her shoulders softened, her lips parted, and her eyes locked on Nora through the tinted glass. For a split second, no one else existed. Not the cameras, not the guests, just them. Nora stepped out.
Slowly, carefully.
Her heels touched the pavement, and she straightened her spine like she belonged there because tonight, she did. The photographers didn't recognize her. Not at first. There was a beat of confusion. Then the flashbulbs doubled. Vivian walked toward her. She didn't hesitate. She didn't check to see who was watching. She just reached for Nora's hand, wrapped her fingers around it, and held on. "You came," Vivian said, barely a whisper. "You invited me," Nora replied. "And you meant it." Vivian's mouth twitched. "I've never meant anything more." They walked in together, side by side, hand in hand. The room tilted. People turned. Conversation slowed. Eyes widened. Nora felt it all. The stares, the curiosity, the quiet calculation of powerful people trying to place her. But none of it mattered. Vivian didn't let go. Not once. When they reached the center of the ballroom, a man from the board approached. Older.
Polished.
Smile like a knife. "Vivian," he said, glancing at Nora. "I see you've brought someone new." Vivian's grip tightened just slightly. "Yes," she said, her voice calm but full. "This is Nora." "And she is?" the man asked, waiting. Vivian looked at Nora, and then back at him. "She's with me." 3 simple words. But Nora felt them everywhere. The man nodded.
"Well,
"It's good to see you looking grounded." "I am," Vivian replied. They moved on. Nora exhaled, tension leaving her body like steam. "Are they always like that?" she whispered. "Usually worse," Vivian said. "But I don't care. You did before. I was stupid before."
no."
"Just scared." Vivian paused, then leaned in, her voice low. "Still scared. But not enough to lose you." Hours passed. The night unfolded in layers, speeches, toasts, whispered questions. But through it all, Nora stayed by Vivian's side. And Vivian? She never once let her go. When the official photographer asked for a photo, Vivian said yes. And pulled Nora in beside her, arm around her waist. Fingers linked. The flash was bright. Nora blinked. Vivian didn't. That night, her name, Nora, was spoken again and again. Introduced. Included. Recognized. And not once did Vivian hesitate. She said it proudly.
Clearly. Like a vow.
By the end of the evening, Nora's cheeks ached from smiling. Her feet hurt. Her chest was full in a way that scared her. They didn't speak in the car ride home. Not because they were angry, but because there was nothing to explain. Everything that had needed to be said had been said. When they got inside the brownstone, Vivian kicked off her heels and turned to her. "How are you feeling?" Nora just looked at her. "Like I've been holding my breath for weeks, and tonight I finally exhaled." Vivian reached up and cupped her face. "You were brilliant. You were brave." Vivian leaned in and kissed her.
Slow. Deep.
Steady. "I meant every word," she said against her lips. "Every look. Every introduction. I want you in all of it. Even the mess. Especially the mess." Nora laughed softly, resting her forehead against Vivian's. "Then let's get messy together." Vivian pulled her in. They didn't rush. They undressed each other with care, like unwrapping something sacred. When they touched, it wasn't frantic or desperate. It was reverent.
Real.
Nora made love to her like she was home. Vivian let herself be seen, fully, finally. And when they lay tangled in bed after, limbs wrapped around each other, breath warm between them, Vivian whispered the words she'd been holding since the closet. "I love you." Nora froze. Just a second. Then, say it again. Vivian kissed her shoulder, her neck, her mouth. "I love you. Even if I'm not perfect?" Nora whispered. "Especially then. Even when I ask too many questions and write everything down and get scared of things I can't name?" "Always," Vivian breathed. "Always, Nora." And when Nora finally whispered it back, "I love you too," it wasn't a confession. It was a promise. One neither of them would ever take lightly again.
Mornings at the brownstone had changed.
They were no longer silent, sterile routines interrupted only by cold coffee and business alerts. Now there was laughter, music, The smell of toast or eggs or Nora burning something and swearing under her breath while Vivian leaned against the doorway, hiding a smile. Nora had never imagined herself in a life like this, wrapped in cotton sheets, reading drafts aloud to someone who actually listened, someone who kissed the top of her head instead of critiquing her tone. Vivian, for her part, was softer now. Not less sharp, not less commanding, but less afraid. She answered emails at the kitchen table with Nora's socked feet resting in her lap. She took fewer late calls. She kissed her goodbye in the mornings like she didn't care who saw. It was real, messy, sometimes imperfect, but real. And for the first time, Nora started to believe in something she hadn't dared to before: stability. One morning, nearly a month after the gala, they sat together in the sunlit living room, Nora editing an essay, Vivian reading a manuscript she'd insisted she wanted to understand. When the doorbell rang, Vivian looked up. Expecting someone? Nora shook her head. Camille's in Spain this week. I haven't ordered anything. Stay, Vivian said, already on her feet. I'll get it. Nora watched her disappear down the hall. A few seconds passed. Then a strange silence. When Vivian returned, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a woman, younger,
Blonde.
pretty in a curated way, polished but tense. She had a small scar on her chin and eyes that narrowed the second they landed on Nora. Vivian's voice was controlled, but her tone was cool. She says she knows you. Nora stood slowly. Her stomach dropped before her heart could catch up. Fiona. Fiona smiled like nothing had happened. Hey, baby. The word landed like venom. Vivian blinked, then looked at Nora sharply. Fiona? Nora's voice cracked. What are you doing here? Fiona walked into the room uninvited, her arms crossed, her gaze skating across the space like she was already bored. I heard you were living with someone. I wanted to see for myself. How did you even find me? Camille's neighbor saw you with a driver last month. Recognized Vivian from some article. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. Vivian stepped slightly in front of Nora, her presence protective. You're not welcome here. Fiona smirked.
Relax.
I'm not here to ruin your little domestic fantasy. I just wanted to remind Nora who she really is. I know who I am, Nora said, more steadily now. You're not the authority on that anymore. Aren't I? Fiona's voice sharpened. You used to beg me not to leave. And now you're what? Playing trophy wife to a CEO. Vivian's jaw clenched. That's enough. Fiona turned to her. You think you know her? She cries when she's drunk. Hates being touched when she's anxious. She ghosted her own sister for 6 months when they had a fight. I said that's enough. Vivian's voice dropped like a blade. Nora stepped forward. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. Fiona's eyes gleamed. You left me without even saying goodbye. I left because I had to, because you made me feel like I wasn't allowed to have needs, or dreams, or a voice. And now you've found someone who lets you pretend you're new, Fiona sneered. But you're not. No, Nora said, breathing hard. I'm not new, but I'm not yours anymore. Vivian reached for her hand. Nora took it.
Tight.
Fiona watched the gesture with a mixture of disgust and something darker, jealousy. This won't last, she said. People like her? They don't stay when things get hard. Vivian raised her chin. Then it's a good thing I'm not like you. Fiona's mouth curled. We'll see. She turned and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't shout. Just vanished. The way she always had, leaving wreckage behind like it was Nora's job to clean it up. The silence that followed was deafening. Nora let go of Vivian's hand and sat back down slowly, her whole body shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know she'd show up. I haven't spoken to her in over a year. Vivian sat beside her. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. Because she tried to ruin something good. And I let her for too long. I let her define me. You don't belong to her, Vivian said firmly. You never did. She made me feel like I owed her everything. She made you feel small. And now you're not. Nora blinked back tears. Do you still want me? Even with all this? Vivian leaned in and kissed her, slow and sure. Especially with all this. Why? Because you didn't hide, she whispered. You faced her. You let me see the worst, and you didn't flinch. Nora pressed her forehead to Vivian's. I'm so tired of looking over my shoulder. Then stop. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. That night, they didn't make love to prove something. They didn't touch to erase Fiona's presence. They curled up under the blanket with tea and silence and stories. Nora told her about the first time Fiona made her cry and called it love. Vivian told her about the first time she made herself numb and called it strength. They peeled each other open in layers. No blood, just truth. And when Nora fell asleep that night, safe, loved, whole, it wasn't with fear humming beneath her ribs. It was with a quiet, steady thought. This is mine. Not stolen. Not borrowed. Not conditional. Just hers. The morning after Fiona's visit, sunlight streamed through the windows in thin gold lines, painting the floor in soft stripes. Nora woke slowly, wrapped in warmth, sheets, skin, and something else she still wasn't used to, but had started to crave. Peace. Vivian lay beside her, already awake, fingers lightly brushing over the back of Nora's hand like she couldn't stop confirming she was real. You didn't run, Vivian whispered. Nora turned her face toward her. Neither did you. They kissed, slow and unhurried, then lay still, listening to the quiet. For once, the world felt like it had taken a breath with them. But peace doesn't stay unchallenged for long. Later that day, while Nora was writing in the kitchen and Vivian was on a call upstairs, Nora's phone lit up with a name she hadn't seen in over 6 months. Eva. Her sister. The same sister she'd ghosted after a fight that had spiraled too fast and cut too deep. Nora stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then she answered. Hey, she said. Silence on the other end. Then, I heard about the gala, Eva said, her voice hesitant. You looked really happy. You saw it. The photo went around. A friend sent it to me. I guess she exhaled. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For how we left things. For not being there. Nora leaned against the counter. I could have reached out too. But you didn't, Eva said gently. And I didn't either. And I hate that. Me too. Another pause. Then Eva's voice softened. Can we meet? Yeah, Nora said. I think I'd like that. When she told Vivian later, they were curled up on the couch, sharing a blanket and a bowl of popcorn while some crime documentary played, ignored. She called. Vivian asked, surprised. Out of nowhere. Are you okay? I think so. Do you want me to come? No, Nora said. I need to do this alone. But I want to come back to you after. Vivian didn't smile. She just kissed her forehead. You always can. The next day, Nora met Eva at a small cafe near their childhood neighborhood. It felt surreal, sitting across from someone who held her memories in the same bones but hadn't seen her in nearly a year. Eva looked different. Older, maybe. But so did Nora. They talked about everything and nothing. Their parents. Work. The small, bitter things that had festered between them and the ways they could have done better. But somewhere in the middle of it, Eva asked a question that pulled the floor out from under her. Do you think this thing with Vivian is forever? Nora blinked. What? You don't have to answer, Eva said quickly. You look happy. And I wonder if that's where you're headed. Like marriage. Life. The whole thing. Nora opened her mouth, then closed it again. Forever. The word hung heavy. Nora had fought for this love. Had chosen it, again and again, through silence and storms and the ghosts of their pasts. But forever? She hadn't let herself think about it. Not deeply. Not until now. I don't know, she admitted. I want to say yes. But sometimes I'm scared. I only know how to survive the beginning. The crisis. The fire. What if I'm not built for the calm? Eva reached across the table and touched her hand. Then maybe this is where you learn. Nora returned to the brownstone that evening and found Vivian in the study, reading. She looked up immediately.
Hey.
How was it? Nora dropped her coat on the back of the chair, came to sit beside her. Good.
Weird.
Emotional. But worth it. Nora nodded. She asked if I think this is forever. Vivian stilled. And what did you say? I said I didn't know. Vivian's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes flickered. Is that still true? Yes, Nora said. But not because I don't want it. Because I'm still learning how to want it without fear. Vivian nodded slowly. I get that. What about you? Nora asked. Do you think about that? Vivian looked down at her hands, clasped in her lap. Sometimes. Quietly. In rooms you're not in. It's terrifying. Why? Because forever means letting someone see you fail. And I've spent my entire life avoiding that. Nora reached out and took her hands. You've already failed. And I'm still here. Vivian laughed softly. Comforting. It's meant to be. Nora paused. But I need to ask you something. And I want the truth. Always. If I said I wanted forever, like, really wanted it, would that scare you off? Vivian met her gaze. No hesitation. No. Would you want it too? Yes, Vivian said. But not the fantasy version. Not the neat, perfect one. I want the kind where we mess up and show up anyway. Where you burn the toast, and I forget to talk about my feelings and we argue over things that don't matter, and then still crawl into bed and choose each other again. That kind. Nora smiled. That's the only kind I'd ever believe in. Vivian leaned in, kissed her softly. Then ask me again one day. I will, Nora whispered. When I'm ready. And if I ask first, then I'll say yes. That night, they made love like the future wasn't a threat but a gift, not promised but possible. And when Nora fell asleep tangled in Vivian's arms, she dreamed not of survival, but of days unfolding without fear. A life built one choice at a time. No more running. No more hiding. Just them, two women who had learned, slowly, painfully, how to stay. The first sign came in a whisper. A passing comment Vivian made one morning while buttering toast. The board's been talking about Singapore again, she said, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather. Nora looked up from her laptop, where she'd been editing an essay. For expansion? Vivian nodded. More than that. A merger. If it happens, I'd need to be there. 6 months. Maybe more. The words didn't hit her at first. Not fully. Nora blinked, trying to catch up. You'd move there? Temporarily. Vivian avoided her gaze, carefully spreading jam. But yes, I'd have to relocate. And you're considering it? It's not official yet. Nora's stomach tightened. But if it were? Vivian finally looked up. Her expression was unreadable. I don't know. And that was the beginning of the unraveling. It wasn't dramatic. No slammed doors. No shouting. Just small things. Quiet spaces between sentences that used to be full. Nora tried not to let it get to her. She told herself this was normal. Life moved.
Careers demanded things.
But deep down, the old ache returned, the fear of being left behind. Again. 2 weeks passed. The merger became more than speculation. Vivian's name was floated as lead negotiator. She started taking late calls again. Meetings in the middle of the night. Her suitcase appeared by the door, open but not packed. Waiting. Nora didn't ask. Not directly. But one night, after too many silences, she stood in the doorway of the study and said, Are you leaving? Vivian didn't look up from her notes. I don't want to. But you might. It's not that simple. It never is. Vivian set the pen down slowly. Do you want me to turn it down? Nora stepped into the room. I want you to want something enough to stay. That's not fair. Isn't it? Nora, I'm not asking you to give up your life. I'm asking you not to build a new one without me in it. Vivian stood, came to her. Then come with me. The words hit like thunder. Nora stared. What? Come with me. To Singapore. Just for the months I'm there. We'll rent a place. Work remote.
Right.
Explore. We'll come back when it's over. Vivian, my life is here. Is it? Her voice wasn't cruel, just sharp. Your work's flexible. Camille's abroad half the time. You don't have roots here. Not really. That's not true. Then tell me what's keeping you. You are, Nora whispered. But not there. Here. Vivian sighed, running a hand through her hair. This doesn't have to be the end of us. No, Nora said. But it might be the beginning of the end. Vivian flinched. I can't not go if they offer it. And I can't follow you just because I'm afraid to lose you. Silence again.
Deep.
Painful. That night, they slept apart. For the first time in months. Nora lay awake, curled on the couch, heart bruised and beating too loud in her chest. Vivian didn't come find her. In the morning, neither of them spoke about it. Days passed like smoke. Nora tried to write, but the words wouldn't come. Vivian tried to act normal, but her eyes kept drifting toward the door. The distance grew. Not from anger, from indecision. Then came the offer. Formal. In writing. Vivian left the letter on the counter without a word. Nora read it. Memorized it. Tried to forget it. Couldn't. That evening, Camille called. She was back from Spain. Energized. Blunt as ever.
So, she said.
You gonna follow the billionaire across the world, or what? I don't know, Nora said. Do you love her? Yes. Do you trust her? Yes. Then what's the problem? I don't know who I am outside of this life. Outside of her. Then maybe it's time you find out with her. That night, Nora found Vivian in the garden behind the brownstone. She was sitting alone, barefoot in the grass, eyes on the sky. Nora sat beside her. They didn't touch, just breathed. After a long moment, Nora said, I can't go because I'm scared. That's not a good enough reason. Vivian turned to her. And if you go because you love me? That's better. But I need to choose it for me too. Vivian nodded. Then tell me what you want. Nora looked at her. I want a future we build. Not one we run after. Not one we sacrifice for opportunity or proximity. One we shape together. Even if it looks different than we imagined? Especially then. Vivian reached out, took her hand. I'll take the deal. But on one condition. What? You don't come to Singapore unless you're ready to. Not out of fear. Not out of love. Out of choice. And if I stay? Vivian swallowed. Then I come back. When it's done. Will you still want me then? Vivian's voice cracked. I'll want you more. They kissed slow, painful, soft.
Not a goodbye. Not yet.
But not the same kiss as before. It tasted like time. Like change. Like maybe forever had different shapes. And this was just one of them. That night, they made love like they were trying to hold each other still through a coming storm. They didn't promise not to break. But they promised to come back. The next morning, Vivian packed. Nora watched. And when the car arrived, she walked her to the door, held her and whispered, I'll be here. Vivian kissed her once.
Twice.
3 times. Then left. And Nora stayed. 3 months. That's how long it had been since the door closed behind her. Since the black car pulled away from the curb and Nora stood in the doorway of the brownstone, heart cracked open but steady, whispering I'll be here like a promise to herself, more than anyone else. Vivian had gone to Singapore with her name on every document, her photo in every press release, her power untouchable, and yet, in every room she walked into, she carried the echo of a woman with ink-stained fingers, a half-written novel in her bag, and eyes that saw straight through her armor. But this isn't just Vivian's story. It never was. Nora stayed. And she did not wait. She didn't pause her life, didn't freeze in place like a woman on hold. She wrote. Every day. Essays. Fragments. Pages she burned. The pages she sent. She let Camille drag her out to poetry readings and jazz nights and museums where she stood too close to art that made her ache. She started therapy again. Opened the wound Fiona left and let it bleed clean. Some days, she missed Vivian so hard it hurt to breathe. Other days, she didn't think about her at all until she slipped into bed and reached for her by instinct. But she never texted, never called. Not because she was bitter, but because they'd agreed. If love meant anything, it had to be chosen freely.
Not chased.
And so she lived.
She grew.
She became someone even Vivian hadn't met yet. And when the email came, short, simple, unmistakably Vivian, it didn't feel like a rescue. It felt like a turning page. Landed. Brownstone in 2 hours. I still want you. Nora stared at the words, then closed her laptop, washed her face, changed her clothes. Not because she needed to look perfect, but because she wanted to feel like herself when Vivian saw her again. The doorbell rang an hour and 47 minutes later. Vivian stood there in jeans and a dark coat, wind-tousled hair, her suitcase behind her. Older somehow, tired, but radiant, human. Her eyes searched Nora's face like she expected to find something missing. Instead, she found something new. "Hi," she said. Nora's heart twisted. "Hi." Vivian didn't step forward. "You look different." "So do you." "I kept thinking about the closet," Vivian said softly. "The way you looked at me in the dark. Like I was already yours." "And you," Nora said, looked like someone who hadn't let herself be wanted in years. "You still want me? You're here, aren't you?" Vivian exhaled. "I don't expect anything. I don't have answers. I couldn't stay away. And I don't want to start over. I want to start from here." Nora opened the door wider. "Then come in." Vivian stepped inside. The brownstone looked the same, but something in the air had changed. Nora made tea. Vivian sat at the kitchen table, watching her like she'd dreamed this 1,000 times and didn't quite believe it was real. "I read everything you published," Vivian said. "Every word. I knew which ones were about me." "They were all about you," Nora whispered. Vivian stood, moved closer. "I was scared you'd become someone without me." "I did," Nora said. "But I didn't stop loving you." "You don't have to say that." "I want to." Vivian reached out, took her hand. "I missed everything about you. Even the parts that scared me. Even the mess." "Especially the mess," Nora echoed. "Always." And then they kissed. Not like before. Not tentative. Not burning with fear of losing time. This kiss was steady. Knowing. A reunion, yes, but more a recognition. Of how far they'd come. Of who they'd become. That night, they didn't rush to bed. They lay on the floor beside the couch, Nora's legs over Vivian's lap, fingers tangled. They talked. About the months apart. The people they'd become. Vivian told her about nights in Singapore where nothing felt right. About standing in conference rooms full of power and feeling empty because Nora wasn't in them. Nora told her about the first time she slept through the night without crying. About learning to be alone and not call it loneliness. About still keeping Vivian's sweater at the foot of the bed. When they finally undressed, it wasn't out of habit or hunger, it was a kind of reverence. They moved slowly, breathing into each other, laughing softly when Nora tripped on her own jeans, kissing like they had all the time in the world. And maybe they did. After, Nora lay curled against Vivian's chest, fingers tracing the outline of her ribs. "Do you still want forever?" she asked. Vivian kissed the top of her head. "I want this. This isn't perfect." "No," Vivian said. "It's better. It's real." "Ask me," Nora whispered. Vivian pulled back slightly, eyes searching hers. "Will you stay?" Nora smiled. "Yes." "Even if I leave again?" "As long as you come back." "Even if we fight?" "Especially then." "Even if we grow?" Nora kissed her. "We have to grow. Otherwise, what's the point?" Vivian closed her eyes, held her tighter. "Then stay with me. For today. For tomorrow. For as long as it makes sense. Forever." Vivian's voice cracked. "One day at a time." "One day at a time," Nora repeated. And that was enough. Years later, people would ask how they made it work. Two women from different worlds, both stubborn, both scarred, both afraid. Nora would laugh and say, "We started in a closet." Vivian would add, "And we never stopped opening doors." And at night, In the brownstone that became theirs, they would climb into bed, still imperfect, still honest, still choosing, and say it again. I love you. Still. Always. Even if. Especially then. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.